This is Just Win Bets, baby, on the Sports Bet Winning Network.
Joining us today is a true veteran of the sports media world and a cornerstone of RotoWire empire. As a senior media analyst at RotoWire, he has spent over a decade shaping how we consume NBA and NFL data. You've heard him on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, seen him on VSiN, and read his award-winning analysis, for years. Please welcome the man who helps the world win their leagues and beat the books, Nick Whalen. Nick, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great, guys. What an intro. Intro. I appreciate it. It's good to be here with you. I know we've been working on getting this set up for a while, so glad we were able to make it work. We got NBA playoffs going on tonight. Really happy to be here.
Absolutely. And we love having you, and we are big fans, not only seeing you every afternoon from 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 2 with on Prop Point on VSiN. So again, guys, on Sirius XM channel 158 and wherever you can able to get VSiN on YouTube channel. And you know what I love there, Nick, is the new multi-view of where you can get the games and see you guys.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a little bit better for the shows that are later in the day, of course. Right. But we got day baseball going on throughout the summer. I appreciate the plug. Over on VSiN, myself, Jeff Erickson, another industry veteran, a guy who's been with RotoWire from the start. Been a lot of fun working with the VSiN guys. I know you guys are pals with some of those guys. They've been on your show, and it's been a really, really fun experience because at RotoWire, for the most part, we've gotten a lot more into betting these last few years, but it's a fantasy company at heart. VSiN, of course, complete opposite. They're all betting. So it's fun to kind of dabble in both worlds.
Right. No, absolutely. We love having you. Let's start off with this one, my friend. You've transitioned from head of basketball content to senior media analyst during a decade where the industry shifted from pure fantasy to betting first, as you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. How has your approach to analyzing a game changed now that you're looking at player props and spreads as much as a traditional fantasy stat?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think it's made me a sharper viewer of games, if you will. You guys bet, of course. And, I was talking with some friends the other night about, I bet a lot of NBA totals for some reason, which I don't recommend. It's not an enjoyable viewing experience by any means. There is value to be had, but it totally changes the way you watch a game, right? Especially if you're on an NBA under. You're basically rooting for every possession to take as long as it possibly can. You're rooting for missed baskets as opposed to made baskets. Like, you want the ugliest possible basketball game that you could get, which if you were just watching a game without anything on it, without any action, you want to be entertained. You want a back and forth game. You want high scoring. You want threes. You want dunks. So I think the more you kind of get into this world, the more you bet, especially the NBA for me this time of year, it completely changes the way you look at games. It completely changes the way you look at certain players. You start to find, certain stats that you value, certain stats that you don't. You kind of get into routines and habits and, what works for you, what doesn't, as far as which stats to trust and which ones maybe don't matter quite as much. But yeah, as far as shifting away from fantasy to betting, it was a challenge at first, that's for sure. And look, I'll tell you guys, I'm here in the state of Wisconsin, which is not exactly downtown Las Vegas in terms of legal betting options, right? So having to kind of find workarounds and, use apps like Prize Picks and Underdog and things like that. It was challenging at first, but the more I've gotten into it, the more experience I've gained, the more comfortable I've become, not only betting, but going on TV and talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a huge shift because, like, me personally, like, I was huge into fantasy football and fantasy basketball and stuff like that. And then betting became legal and it's starting to come out legal more and more states as we talk, right? Unless you're like Ohio. Ohio's thinking about getting rid of it altogether, it seems like. Yeah. But it is like a big shift for sure. It's a big way of changing your minds, like what you look at. What do you think's like a prop or a bet that like a lot of fans overlook that usually has a lot of value in?
So it's a specific prop. I mean, obviously this time of year I'm doing mostly NBA. I think in general, most people just avoid unders, and I think there's actually a ton of value in unders in the player prop market. Jalen Duren, for instance, is, that was one that I gave out in our show today. The under, 23.5, I think is where the number closed on the points, rebounds, assists. In general, you want to bet overs, right? It's tough to, envision yourself sweating out the bet when, you're kind of actively rooting against what we just talked about, as far as, an unentertaining, product to watch. So I think that's a good one. I think the more you kind of dig around at your preferred sportsbook too, you'll find a lot more than you might think, right? Like these sportsbooks, the way they're set up, they kind of want you just betting the basics, right? Points, rebounds, assists, threes, whatever it might be. But there are derivative markets. There are player versus player markets where I think oftentimes you'll find better value than you would just kind of betting specific player props separately, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, tonight there was a, leading scorer in the Pistons Cavs game, and you're getting Cade Cunningham and you're getting Donovan Mitchell at plus money in those markets. Whereas you look at their points props and they're 26, 27 and a half. Those are big numbers just to go over. And, you might see those at minus 125, minus 130. So I think there are ways, if you're willing to do the work, to generate more value on specific games, because these books they're offering a lot more than just the basic markets these days.
Oh, for sure. One thing I don't like is because betting unders, you're right. It's hard, especially for beginners or people getting into betting. A lot of people don't want to do it because everybody wants to root for the under or the overs. Everybody wants 1 million points scored, right? So it's a different way of looking at it, but they can be very profitable. And one thing I don't like is a lot of sports books have started to take away unders on the alt line. Like they just make it to 10 plus points or 15 plus points. You can do that. But they used to have it under those. I would bet those all the time, jack it up 5 more points or something like that and take the under. And it sucks that a lot of the books are taking those down.
Yeah, no question. And rightfully so, they're doing it. I think because they know that they're occasionally getting beat on those. But that's been frustrating. You have this proliferation of, increasingly kind of more creative ways that you could find to bet these games. But you'll often run into, some of those brick walls too, where you're like, man, I really would like to bet an alt under. So I don't know. We always tell people at RotoWire, get as many books as you can, right? You don't want to be over leveraged. You don't want to have 25 accounts going, but if you're a one sportsbook person, if you're just kind of using the same app over and over, you're not often going to find the best value.
Yeah, absolutely. We're with our good friend Nick Whalen, and you can follow him on X at Whalen. Well, let me spell this out for you because I know they kind of gave you a hard time on one of the shows here. It's at WHA1. Okay, it looks like an L, but it's a one EN, and give our friend a follow there. So Shano, make sure it's the one. It's not an L, it's a one. And no, I'm not making fun of it. I know a couple of the other guys.
This has been a big problem. It's on me. Gil and Kelly and Matt Brown at VSiN have really raked me over the coals for this. I made this in 2011. All right. It looks better written out. At that point, I didn't think, people would be saying it on live streams or on VSiN or SiriusXM or whatever. It's fully on me. I've looked into changing it. There really aren't any viable options. All the other derivatives are taken.
Holy cow. So that's why they don't have me. It's Joe the fan. No one's going to, take it. Or the best one, we've had our good friend. This was great. Zach Cohen, where he has betting on X. That's gold, Jerry. Gold. You know what I mean?
But I think he might have even had that before Twitter became X, didn't he? What foresight? Yeah.
Oh man. I if you could sell a name, well, it's kind of like the .com.
Oh yeah.
Man, I'm not saying to sell it, but if he wanted to, you should
look into it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just me. Let me ask you this question, my friend. We are seeing a massive surge in offensive production and pointless basketball, which you mentioned earlier. From a fantasy and betting perspective, does this make the league harder to predict, or have our analytical model finally caught up to the modern pace of play?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I will say in general, I think it has made it a little bit more difficult because, if we're talking about the NBA specifically, you'll hear the term the homogenization of offense. Every team kind of plays the same way, right? Where if you rewind even 10 years, back to 2015, 2016, it was kind of, it was Golden State, it was the Rockets who were leading this offensive revolution. Cleveland in the later LeBron years kind of got into that, where it was just, spread the floor, get LeBron some shooters, try to get up 45 threes. I even at that time though, you never really thought, we're going to see these games where the Boston Celtics are taking 65 threes in a high leverage NBA playoff game. But teams have gotten too smart, right? They realized what Daryl Morey realized 10 or 15 years ago, which is, all right, why do we have Julius Randle jacking up 8 17-footers every single night when we could just back up just a few feet, and all of a sudden that shot is worth 3 points. So it's kind of wreaked havoc, as far as totals go. Obviously, we've seen some pretty huge adjustments, games closing like, in the high 240s during the regular season. But, what's interesting is that in the playoffs every year, and especially this year, if you've been tracking totals, we're kind of back to that almost pre 3-point era style in terms of scoring. Like, teams are still shooting a lot of threes, but scoring, defense is just so much different in the postseason. So I love the brand of basketball that we see in the NBA playoffs. In the regular season, it is really, really tough. But I will say this, with the offensive revolution, statistics have gotten a lot better as well. So I think it can be, on the surface, if you're not looking at the right numbers, it can be really, really difficult to bet. You're like, okay, how did the Memphis Grizzlies come out and hit 24 threes? How did they keep this game close, against the Lakers or the Spurs or whoever it is? But, if you're looking at 3-point props, for instance, you could go to nba.com/stats. You can go to whatever your preferred site is, and you can find some really, really good data as far as, okay, where are these shots being produced? Who's taking these shots? Where on the court are they coming? And, if you're willing to dive in on the research, I think you can do a little bit more kind of predictive modeling now than you could have 5 or 10 years ago.
I like it. Yeah. And defense is definitely a totally different animal in the playoffs compared to the regular season. And I think that's like across the board in all sports, right? So like I give our hockey picks for NHL, and NHL playoffs are on over here. If you see my eyes kind of floating over, it's because I have the Avalanche game on right now.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like hockey, like traditionally the playoffs, the unders hit a lot for the totals.
Yeah.
This year there's been a decent amount of overs, but that playoff defense definitely is totally different than the regular season. And it's almost like a different sport at times.
Yeah, no question. I will say, guys, I do not follow hockey at all. I'm not going to pretend to be a hockey analyst. My hockey knowledge is probably at an all-time low. I give a lot of credit to people who do both NBA and NHL, because that's pretty rare. I mean, those are kind of oil and water. But yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, not what I've watched or analyzed, yeah, you kind of see that same thing in hockey. I mean, to begin the NBA playoffs, we had a huge run of unders because it took a while for the market to adjust to that style of play.
Yeah, it's hard to do both. I mean, they both happen at the same time. I mean, it's impossible, I think, to do both. At least do both well.
Yeah.
But
Shane covers the NHL and UFC. He's been on First Strike. He's actually been with Dustin Swidelson on Cashing Out.
Oh, nice.
That was a couple of weeks ago. Shane, you went 3-1 on that, right?
Yeah, on Dustin's show. Yeah, I was for the I gave my best bets for the first round of playoffs, like who would win each game, or each series, I should say. So yeah, I went 3-1 on that one. The stupid Bruins.
Yeah, well,
that's my one loss.
A couple of plus winners, so plus money. And I handled more of the domestic and international soccer. I know that the World Cup is coming on, so I think it's safe to say that you don't really follow that soccer, or that's not your cup of tea. Yes.
No, I do not know anything about soccer. Look, I know Messi, I know Ronaldo.
Sure.
There for a brief period, like my senior year of high school, I got like really into the Ivory Coast team when they had Drogba.
Right.
Played a lot of FIFA, of course, in college, but no. I mean, I feel like you guys too. I'm sure you gravitate to betting the sports, playing fantasy for the sports that you feel like you understand the most, right? And I don't know anything about soccer. I've never been good at soccer. I can't ice skate. So, look, it's not like I played in the NFL or the NBA by any means, but those are at least sports where I feel like, all right, I have something in common with these athletes, but no, I don't follow soccer really at all.
We're with our friend Nick Whalen here, and again, you can follow him on X at Whalen. That's WHA1EN on X, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of RotoWire smart money a little bit later in this interview. But let's pick your brain on this one, my friend. Speaking of RotoWire, it is built, of course, on data and projections, but sports are ultimately played by humans. Let's really be honest, right? Is there a specific tangible factor like locker room chemistry or coaching tendencies that you find most often breaks the statistics or statistical models that you use?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, I think that is a battle that we've kind of tried to fight at RotoWire and any sports website, whether you're talking gambling or fantasy. I think especially with the onset of AI and whatnot, you'll see these tools saying, you don't even have to set your lineup. We'll do your draft for you. And, that's essentially something we offer at RotoWire, which is appealing to a certain subset of people. And I'm glad we have it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like part of the fun in betting, part of the fun in fantasy is, you want to feel like you made that right decision, right? Not that a computer made it for you or a model made it for you. In betting, I'm a little bit more willing to just say like, all right, I don't know everything. The models know more than I do. But with fantasy specifically, like that's such a part of the fun, right? Because you're in this league with your friends and you want to feel like you know more, right? Like it's all about proving who's the biggest ball knower when you're in your home league in fantasy. So yeah, it is kind of an interesting back and forth. I wouldn't say, locker room type of stuff. Like that's just, I think we know so little as fans or analysts, compared to what we think we know, based on what's being reported on ESPN. I think locker room dynamics are something that we just aren't going to be clued in on. But I think in the NFL specifically, you see things all the time where, Travion Henderson is a name who comes to mind, right? Where it's like everybody's pushing Travion Henderson up the board going into drafts. You remember how dynamic he was at Ohio State. And it's like, all right, it's week 8. It's week 9. It's week 10. How is Ramondre Stevenson still out carrying him week to week? Why are we not seeing Travion Henderson break in? These are the chances that you have to take. It's ultimately what makes fantasy football fun. But, sometimes you don't see things the same way that the coaching staff does. And I think specifically in the NFL, you see that with these backfield splits, these wide receiver splits. Matthew Golden for the Packers is another name who comes to mind, somebody I was really high on. And it's like, all right, we're seeing a lot of Dontavian Wicks, and I can't really tell you why.
You never know what this coach is seeing in practice for sure and stuff like that. Speaking of fantasy football, what do you think's the ideal size for a league? Like how many teams?
I think 12. Right.
12?
Yeah. I mean, almost every league I play in is 12. You play in some of these bigger contests, which I'm sure you guys dabble into where, there's a contest beyond your league, so if you take first or second in your league, you're then kind of go on to the playoffs, the final weeks of the season for the other winners of the other leagues. So there are kind of ways that you can turn these into larger contests, but I've played in some 10-team leagues. It's fun. You feel like you nail your draft when you're in a 10-team league because, the player pool kind of shortens up for you. I played in 14-team leagues over at the NFFC. That's the complete opposite. Every draft I've ever done in a 14-team league, I'm like, oh my goodness, this looks terrible. I have like 2 good players. So 14 is a little more challenging, but I think 12 is ideal. I think that's the standard for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in a really big league. I'm in one with a bunch of friends from college, and it's 16 teams, and it's impossible. The waiver wire is like dry. Like there's like nothing there at all, dude.
Yeah,
and
you're fired up to pick up.
You might get like 1, maybe 2 good guys in the draft you feel like good on, and then it's like nothing. You just got like hope and pray.
Yeah, I mean it's more challenging. It depends what you're looking for. I think 12 is kind of meeting in the middle, but yeah, I play in some NBA roto leagues, that go up to, I think we got 16 teams in one of them, and it's an auction league, so it's super competitive as far as building your roster. And then, yeah, like you said, the waiver wire feels like it means a little bit more. So in roto basketball or baseball leagues, I'm totally willing to go bigger, but football, I think 12 is ideal.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Totally agree.
Shano, our guest, of course, is from the great state of Wisconsin, which you went for the Washington and Green Bay game this past NFL season, and you said you had an amazing time. But Nick, I got asked this. I guess it's somewhat of a personal question. He talks about this constantly. Not only the great people in Wisconsin and Green Bay, but also, hey, Culver's. Is that probably like your top 3? Like I'm not implying that you eat fast food, but if you had to eat something, is Culver's like legit?
How dare you imply that I eat fast food? No, there's a Culver's. I live in the Milwaukee area. There's a Culver's like, I don't know, 600 feet from my house. I don't eat a ton of fast food, and
right.
I hope nobody from Wisconsin is watching this. I love Culver's. I like the ice cream specifically. Okay. It's a little overpriced, guys. It's a little overpriced. If I'm going to get fast food, I'm a volume eater. I'm always worried about, like, even when I go to a nice restaurant, it's like, am I going to get enough food? I don't care how good the food is. It's like, am I going to be full? I mean, you can get 3 McChickens, 4 McChickens at McDonald's for the price of a combo meal at Culver's. So it becomes more of an opportunity cost thing for me. The food is great, but I don't agree with their pricing structure. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I went to Culver's and I was out there and I was like, good God, this is like delicious fast food. It was like the best fast food restaurant I've ever been to.
People swear by it.
It was so good.
So you were out there. That was the week 2 game, right? Was that a Thursday night game?
Yeah, Thursday night game.
That was the day I thought the Packers were winning the Super Bowl.
we had such high hopes, and then Jaden got banged up in that game, and then like it was like it wasn't a good game, but like it was like I've been to tons of away games. My wife and I go to like at least one away game together a year.
Awesome.
And like we check out like a new city, you know, hang out there for like a short, like a long weekend and watch the game and stuff. But the Green Bay fans are probably the nicest fan base I've ever been to. I'm sitting there wearing an old Redskins sweatshirt, and like they're just saying like, "Oh, I hope you have fun."
Yeah,
like everybody was like super nice. No like yelling or cursing at me or anything like that. It was super great.
I always tell people, and I will say, I don't know if you've discovered this in your research or on VSiN. I'm not actually a Packers fan. I'm a Jaguars fan. It's a long story. We don't need to get into. It's actually not a cool story at all. But I grew up in Green Bay. I've been to a ton of Packers games. I always tell people like the experience totally lives up to the hype. You know, I'm sure Bears fans would disagree, or Lions fans, or Vikings fans, but like the coming from out of town experience, the Lambeau experience, the tailgating, like it's as good as it gets, man. Even as somebody who's, fairly agnostic toward the Packers, like every time you go, you still get chills, walking into the concourse.
Yeah, like we parked on some guy's like lawn, and like we parked there, paid him like it was like $15 or $20. We paid him something like that, and then like he was like, "Hey, you guys want a brat?" And he's like grilling
just handed you beers.
It was great. It was amazing. It was a great time. Great time.
That's the best.
And it was week 2, so it wasn't like 2 degrees.
Night game, nothing better.
Right. We're with our friend here, Nick Whalen here. And again, you can follow him on X. You can see it right there below here of RotoWire, which powers the show there, Shane. As you know, got to put on the hat that they sent us.
Wow.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Shane, you got yours as well, but somewhere, I guess. But let's talk a little start. And again, I want to be completely transparent with you there, Nick.
Yeah.
We kind of use your face pretty much every single day. Hey, by the way, the commission check is in the mail of promoting this RotoWire. We're so honored to be a part of the RotoWire Smart Money, and we wanted to pick your brain and kind of tell our audience a little bit more about that. But we add, the website, we add the QR code and everything in a short. We cover over 20 leagues there, Nick, from football, NFL. Obviously, it's not going on now, but college football, college basketball, NHL, soccer, domestic and international. Not only men's sports, but also women's sports. We have a young lady that covers WNBA and the PWHL, and MLB. I mean, UFC. The list goes on and on. Zuffa boxing. So, tell us a little bit about, the smart money and how I've seen you not only on X to talk about it, especially with the NBA basketball season and playoffs, but Shano, you've used it for hockey, yes?
Yeah, I found it very useful for player props in hockey. There's some pretty good ones that like I've seen on there, and I was like, oh, that actually looks pretty good value. And I do my research on it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good call. So I definitely use it to like try and get some ideas from now and then, especially with player props for hockey.
But yeah, the floor is yours. Could you at least tell us a little bit more about RotoWire Smart Money?
Yeah, so this is a tool that we launched a few months ago, and it's rotowire.com/smart-money. You can find it on the site. It pulls in essentially flags props where we are seeing, and not just props, can be money line spreads, bets from any sport all over the place where we are seeing significant sharp action coming in. And we're pulling most of that data from prediction markets because, as I'm sure you guys know, if you're a sharp bettor, if you're a winning bettor, you're probably not betting on DraftKings or FanDuel. You've long been limited at those books. You go over to prediction markets, you're not going to get limited there. You can get, it's where you could get $700 or significantly more down on an NBA prop that, somebody like that might be limited to $10 or $15 if they want to bet it at DraftKings. So basically what the tool does is, and it'll display it on the page, it'll show you exactly where that sharp money is coming in. It'll show you how much money has come in at each specific price. So I'm looking at the page right now. Giants-Dodgers is a late game that we have starting up in Major League Baseball. That's the top play. Each play is ranked 0 to 100. 100 meaning, kind of a stronger indicator that sharp money is coming in, and you could get a better price than these sharp bettors are getting. So we're looking at Willy Adames in this example to have over 0.5 walks, just to walk at any point in this Giants-Dodgers game. And you will see that we have significant money coming in at plus 301 at prediction markets. So what the tool does, it'll show you that. It'll give you the idea, okay, maybe I want to tail somebody who's willing to put $700+ on a Willy Adames walk prop. Maybe they know something. Maybe their model knows something. Like you said, it's more about, kind of generating ideas and, or, just being able to tail someone as opposed to here are the locks of the night. Here's what we have flagged as the best possible value. This bet is going to hit. It's not that at all. I mean, you're just like any, type of bet that you're looking at, especially with how many plus money props show up with smart money. Like you're probably going to lose more than you are win. But the whole idea is that you're generating value and you're generating maximum value on each bet that you win. So not only are we showing you where the pricing is coming in, where all the money is getting down, we also scan the entire market and show you where you can get the best price. So if you like the Willie Adames prop and you say, okay, I want to tail this sharp bettor who's putting a ton of money on this, but I see it over at my preferred book and it's only plus 205. We're showing you, there's some books in the market where you can get this at plus 325. So all of that is factored in to the overall score, 0 to 100. And, it depends on how you want to use it. Some people would just kind of say, all right, I'm going to blindly trust where this sharp money is coming in. I want to tail these guys. They're smarter than me. They have better tools than me. We encourage people to use it that way. Or, like you said, it could be more about idea generation. Like, all right, where's the money coming in? Do I agree with this? Do I not? And we're not telling you to bet everything that pops up on the page, but if nothing else, it's a really good starting point.
Absolutely. We have some technical difficulties with our good friend Shino Mack, and he'll be coming back in just a second. We'll leave you with this, my friend. There he is. We'll leave you with this one, my friend. Is what do you say to the kind of those who are trying to break their way into the industry, not only into what you do, but also the betting? What kind of like. Is there certain rules if you're trying to bet, hey, what to do and what not to do? We've asked majority of our guests about that. Hey, don't really bet every single day or be disciplined more or less when it comes to betting. Yeah. Is there any advice that you give to our audience regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are two pretty good starting points. I wouldn't necessarily say, don't bet every day, but, bet when you feel confident, right? Don't chase your losses. I mean, these are kind of the 101s of, getting into serious sports betting. But, if we're talking kind of breaking into this industry, if you want to do what I do or what you guys do, I think transparency is also really important, right? I'm sure you guys see this on X all the time where you got these accounts like fighting with each other. You said you went 2-1, but I tracked your bets and you actually went 2-3. It's like, you're never going to get ahead just being the guy who wins all the time, right? Because everybody knows that's not how it's actually working. I think people increasingly want to follow personalities. Like, obviously, yeah, if you're winning at a crazy high rate, yeah, you're going to get some attention. People are going to maybe follow you in the short term, but everyone knows that's not going to continue in the long term. So I think you have to develop, kind of a personality. You have to develop, your social media. You have to develop, a collection of clips. So when an opportunity presents itself, you're not just saying, yeah, I like sports, I like betting. You want to have some demonstrated experience on camera. You want to have some demonstrated experience, even if it just means, trying things out on your own podcast. So it's not an easy industry to be in, as I'm sure you guys are aware. I think it's becoming an increasingly difficult industry to be in. I got a journalism degree back in 2014 and thought, I'd love to write about the NBA for the Washington Post or the New York Times. And you quickly realize those jobs don't really exist anymore. You need to be agile. You need to be able to do everything, right? You can't just write. You can't just do social media. You got to be good on camera. You got to be able to speak clearly. You have to be able to do a little bit of writing, and you have to be able to sell yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And what sucks is you just brought up the Washington Post. They scrapped their whole sports department. It's like doesn't even exist anymore. It's like crazy.
Every month it feels like these stalwarts that just felt invincible. When we were coming up. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
And
I mean,
and the Washington Post had some big names come from there. You had like Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. I mean, it's like some huge names in the industry. And then now just they scrapped the whole department, and it's like, whoa, it's
sad,
like mind blowing.
It's sad, man. I mean, if Zach Lowe's getting laid off from ESPN, it's like maybe the industry's not doing great.
Yeah. Well, Nick, we truly appreciate your time, and we want to give you an opportunity to see where they can not only see it on Prop Points, again, weekdays with our with Jeff Erickson on VSiN, but what else can they do? And not only you mentioned smart money and stuff like that, but where else can they see more of your work and everything else that you cover in this industry?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, encourage everyone to just check out RotoWire.com. We're always running promos, we're running specials. You can use the code VSiN, VSIN. That'll get you 15% off. We'll do free trials if you just want to check things out over at RotoWire. And we'll be doing a ton of revamping ahead of football season. So if you're a current subscriber, if you've used RotoWire in the past, even encourage you to check us out, especially in the coming months as we prepare for NFL. So rotowire.com, like you guys mentioned, I appreciate the plug for the smart money tool. You can find me on VSiN Monday through Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, prop points with Jeff Erickson. I'm trying to run through the whole Rolodex here. So right before prop points, I host on Sirius XM Fantasy. That goes right into the VSiN show. So that's 11 to 1 p.m. Eastern. You can find me on Sirius XM Fantasy, RotoWire Fantasy Sports Today. In the evenings during the NBA season, the RotoWire NBA show, which is 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern over on Sirius XM NBA Radio. Our podcasts, of course, wherever you get your podcasts, the RotoWire YouTube channel, the RotoWire socials, all over the place, guys. I'm trying to put out as much as I can this time of year.
Absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. It was fun to talk with you. Who do you got winning it all in the NBA, by the way? Just one last thing.
I mean, unfortunately, it's just got to be the Thunder, right? I mean, I really, really hope that we get this all-time series between the Spurs and OKC, and I think we might, right? I mean, like these are, to me, clearly the two best teams in the league. I hope San Antonio closes that series out on Friday night, and we get a 6 or 7 gamer in the West. But I think it's got to be OKC, guys. I know they haven't maybe been challenged all that much in the first 2 rounds, but like we watched that whole Lakers series. It was like barely mentioned that, like, oh yeah, Jalen Williams, an all NBA player last year, wasn't even on the court, and it didn't matter. I mean, the wealth of depth and talent that OKC has is just out of control. And look, I think San Antonio could push them as well as anybody, but there's going to come a time where we're also going to realize, like, oh yeah, outside of Harrison Barnes and I guess De'Aaron Fox, like most of these guys have never really played in a high leverage playoff series.
Man, Sam Presti's like on another level as a GM, dude. I mean, he like built that team like crazy. Turned like he had like the big 3 when they had Durant and all them.
Yeah.
But then like turned that into multiple picks. And then now, like, they won the championship last year. And probably one of the heavy favorites to win this year if they could win it this year. And then they still have like the 11th or 12th overall pick this year. It's like crazy.
The crazy thing is like they've had like bad luck in the lottery. Every year they're in position to maybe jump up, and like none of their picks have even jumped up. Like none of these picks have been as good as we thought they would. Like, like 2 months into the year, the Clippers were like the worst team in the NBA, and we're like, oh my God, are they going to hand over the number 2 pick to OKC? And then of course the Clippers go on this crazy run and they end up making the play-in. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but like it could be worse for the league than it is now with OKC.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'm just happy my Wizards got the first overall pick. I was happy.
Congratulations, man. Do you want them to take Devonta? Are you considering Peterson? Are you considering trading down?
I would either trade down, or I'm going to throw this at you, and this is a kind of once in a lifetime kind of trade. Giannis comes to Washington, and there's the number 1 overall pick. I don't think that'll happen, but
I mean, I would think about it if I'm Milwaukee. Right. Yeah. I mean, part of me still thinks like Giannis has enough cachet with the Bucks. As I said here in my Milwaukee Bucks quarter zip, by the way, sure. I think Giannis has enough cachet that like, I still think he's going to have a little bit of say, right? Like, are they really, like, if he says, I don't want to go to Washington, are they really going to look him in the eye and say, too bad, man, you're going?
Right.
Like, man, I mean, if they're willing to put the number 1 pick on the table, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's the ultimate, like, man, if they stay healthy type of team. Yeah. But it's fascinating because most of these proposals that come through for, these Giannis trades, I'm like, I don't really like that. That team wouldn't do that. I mean, the number 1 pick in this draft specifically is maybe the single best asset that Milwaukee could get feasibly.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of rumors that Utah's owner like wants Devonta bad because like he paid like a lot of NIL money to BYU. He's like pretty much the reason why he went to BYU. Right. And they're saying like if we can just even move back 1 pick and then pick up some like another young player or like another pick next year is like that I would take that in a second. Move down 1 pick in this draft. So I think the last time we saw that players are huge in this draft.
Right. The last time we saw that was the Fultz Tatum draft, right? And look, I don't think one of the players is going to forget how to play basketball and be out of the league. But that worked out pretty well for Boston. I mean, if Washington views Peterson and Devonta as fairly even, and you could pick up, a lightly protected 1st round pick to move down 1 spot, I think they should absolutely consider that because with all due respect to the Wizards, like I don't know if the Trae Young Anthony Davis pairing is the long-term plan. Like the Wizards need to still accumulate a lot more young assets.
Sure.
Yeah. Luckily, some of the picks they'd have picked as it looked like they're kind of like SARS turned out to be like it looks like a legit player.
Yeah.
So that's good. But like Anthony Davis, it sounds like he doesn't even really want to be here based on some of the interviews you hear him.
That's
So
been bizarre.
he might be out the door, but
yeah, the star pick looks really good. I mean, even some of the, like Keyshawn George looks like a hit. I still have some optimism on Bub Carrington. People make fun of the Wizards. They haven't drafted that badly. Some of those drafts where they had high picks were bad drafts too. It's like, all right, the Otto Porter draft.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, Nick, we truly appreciate. Oh no, he's yelling in my ear to ask you this. Okay, I promise you. Last question. We asked all of our what do you call it, interviews that who is on your Mount Rushmore of NBA players now that you've seen, not Wilt Chamberlain or stuff like that, but we got to ask you. It doesn't have to be in order. Your Mount Rushmore of NBA players, either past or current.
Okay, so are we talking like my like top 4 greatest players ever, or like my favorite players ever?
Favorite players. I like
favorite players.
Favorite. Okay, well that's great. So number 1 is easy. That's Tracy McGrady. I was like weirdly into Tracy McGrady as a kid, like to a point where it was like, all right, dude, you got too many Tracy McGrady jerseys. So he has always been my all-time favorite player. I am a big LeBron guy. You see the LeBron thing behind me. He's got to be on there. I was thinking about this the other day because obviously LeBron is in his 40s and I'm like, all right, I've been a LeBron guy for a while. Tracy McGrady's been out of the NBA for like 15 years. Like, who am I going to transition myself to? Like, who am I going to attach myself to? I think Tyrese Maxey is the guy. I think he's going to be my new favorite player. He's so fun to watch. I love the personality. I love the energy that he plays with. So he's kind of like my current favorite young player. And, the other guy who I really like, and I know he's been in the news this season for the wrong reasons, but I think is going to go down as probably a super underrated player when he's actually on the court is Kawhi Leonard. I think like Kawhi versus Kevin Durant is like a legitimate debate. Durant's going to go down as probably the greater player. He's got the 2 rings. But I think peak Kawhi Leonard to me is the only player that I've ever seen LeBron James like legitimately like, I don't want to go up against this guy. Like I think like Kawhi at his absolute peak was probably the second best player in that conversation with LeBron and Curry, of the last 10 or 15 nasty.
Yeah, and then Kawhi could do it on both ends of the court. That's the thing about him.
That's the other thing.
Especially in his prime, man. He could lock dudes down defensively.
So nasty.
Yeah. Tracy McGrady, I used to have his shoes, the T-Mac ones. I used to love those. Back in like high school, I had those things.
I've been trying to get my hands on a pair of those to like turn into golf shoes, which I probably shouldn't do. But oh my god, those are the ones with like the little lines on the inside. Yeah. Oh my god, those were. I had
they were black and they had like the blue lines going across the top there. I was like, I used to love those things.
Those were so cool.
All right, Nick, man. Well, thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you on. Make sure you check out Nick Whalen here at WHA1EN on X. And thanks for joining us, man. It was lots of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Nick, stay safe. Good luck to your success. Say hi to Jeff for us. And make sure, again, to follow Nick with as you can see there, right there on the bottom. But when we return, of course, we will have our bets of the night right after this.